We have with us David Drozd. He is the Director of Research and Data Analytics at Community Health Development Partners. And you might recognize his name because for years, David has been kind of the go-to source around here for population demographics and data like that. David, good morning. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, it's good to have you back, and we want to talk to you about some data we've noticed recently that is of concern. Douglas County, well, first of all, start with Nebraska population growth was about half the recent norm when you look at the growth between 2021 and 2022. And even in the Omaha metro area, it appears that growth has slowed dramatically compared to the growth rate before the pandemic. So let me just kind of throw that out there and hear what your reactions are to what I just said.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. Last couple of years, the 8-county Omaha metro has grown by about 4,000 people per year, and that's opposed to about 10,000 per year during the 2010s decade. So it is about half the level of the growth, and, we're just seeing some differences, slow down in natural change, meaning births versus deaths, and then also our migration numbers haven't been really good of late. So growth has slowed nationally as well, but we are seeing it locally, which is a little bit different than our recent experience.
David, when it comes to growth in, say, Douglas County and Lancaster County and Pottawatomie County, are those at the detriment of smaller towns throughout the states?
Well, typically the areas are integrated and working together, but what I see in these numbers is one of the reasons Douglas County has slowed down is that we have seen a higher level of growth in some of the outlying counties. So Saunders County with Wahoo, Washington County with Blair, and Cass County with Plattsmouth. So each of those three counties have, on a per-person basis, are roughly growing double what they did last decade, while Douglas County specifically has really slowed. So the assumption on that might be related to pandemic and being able to work from home, and maybe people are wanting to be where they have a little bit more space or preferences in their school system and things like that. So we are seeing a little bit of pressure on the urban core, but the suburban has done a little bit better.
Is Douglas County losing to Sarpy County?
It traditionally has when it comes to migration. So a lot of people are, going to college, maybe get a first house in Douglas County, but then they tend to want to go a little bit more suburban, and Sarpy County has really fit that mold, especially with its lot of new housing and some of the options you have there.
Historically, Omaha has been an immigrant town. Much of the city's growth for over 100 years can be attributed to foreign migration or immigration. That was compromised during the pandemic. Talk to us a little bit about the current immigration growth and where that's trending right now, David.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. We do have that history, and it does continue. And one of the surprising things that we see as you look at North Omaha, for example, we do see a lot of growth there of various races, including foreign-born black population from Africa and other places, and then foreign-born Asian, and that's one of our fastest groups that's growing. So across the board, migration goes up and down. There's some both state and national policies that drive that. It is one of the hardest things for the Census Bureau to track and find and be able to, appropriately account and allocate those numbers to all the states and localities. So when we do look at the 2020 census results, though, we do see a lot of growth, especially in populations of color, and a lot of those are from outside the United States. So immigration does keep our population growing.
Interestingly, the pandemic started in March of 20. Had it started in, say, 2018, that really would have made it difficult for census numbers for the 2020 census, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, pretty much right when the census was getting going, the target date is April 1st, and the forms get mailed out in early August. But
of what year?
There are some door-to-door operations in 2020, and those all had to be suspended and delayed for quite a while.
Oh, so they actually do the 2020 census all during 2020, and the results come out, a year or two later?
Yeah, they're supposed to come out a year later on the counts for reapportionment, so that process has all taken place with the redistricting. But we are still waiting for some of the more detailed numbers. So we haven't received data by 5-year age group, for example. So that's supposed to come out here at the end of May, and be about 3 years after the census, whereas 10 years ago it came out, a little over a year after the census. So this is quite a wait for us who work with data.
Okay, talking with David Drozd from Community Health Development Partners. So, David, we had about 4,000 net growth in the metro area as opposed to the normal 10 during that period of time. I've talked to a few people about that, and everyone seems to be a little bit perplexed because when we drive around town, we see construction here, construction there. The traffic is coming back. Has come back from the pandemic. It feels like a place that's growing a lot faster than it is. Is there any chance that this data could be underreported, or any thoughts on why we feel like we're growing, but yet we're growing at less than half the pace we had been?
Or everybody came too.
These are estimates, and they're based on a certain set of methodology. So, the birth and death numbers are fairly sound because those are based off filed birth and death certificates. The migration's always a wild card, especially related to college students, and again, the international in-migration is tough. But they use primarily IRS tax records to see where a person or a family files in 1 year versus the next, and that helps identify those moves. But we do see these numbers in the estimates that show a slowing of the migration also reflected in some survey-based numbers that the Census Bureau does. So that's where we look at our brain drain, or people who are 25 and older that have at least a bachelor's degree and their migration. So we've been tracking this for about 15 years, and our current levels here in 21 are the lowest, or in Nebraska's sense, worst that they've been in that entire 15-year time frame. So for whatever reason, we're seeing a little bit more people, and again, retirees, people move for a variety of reasons, and that brain drain number kind of encapsulates all of that, not just your students. So while the numbers could have some error in them, it's definitely possible. They are our best go-to source, and we'll see, again, as additional data comes out, next year, if the numbers support each other or show that there were some flukes in the methods early in the decade.
Okay, we got one more minute, and I want to ask you one last question that you kind of segued into, and that's why. Do the data give you any indication as to why? Because we hear things like our unemployment rate is so low, the weather's not so great here, taxes are high, there's a housing shortage in Omaha. Do you have any idea what the primary causes are that has cut our growth rate in half lately?
Yeah, so I'd put that on the migration. So when it is very true, Nebraska has one of its lowest unemployment rates ever, but the gap between our current low unemployment rate and the national rate, which is about 3.5%, that's also at an all-time low. So we don't have a very large gap, whereas like in the Great Recession, our unemployment rate was about 6 points lower than the national average, whereas right now it's maybe a point or a point and a half lower. So there's just a lot of more opportunities for people to go and find work in other locations. And the other factor, some of our cost of living, we used to have a good advantage there. Some of that has dwindled, especially as some of our housing costs have gone up locally.
Okay, well, fascinating stuff, David. As always, we appreciate you providing valuable information, and thanks for being part of the show.
Yes, so thanks so much for having me, and have a good day.
Thanks, David.
David Drozd, the Director of Research and Data Analytics at Community Health Development Partners. If you like this video, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And remember, Grow Omaha is not just media. This is a mission. We are trying to build up Omaha and make it an even better place. We can only do that with your help. Share this video with your friends, neighbors, and family.